5.
5, right? Yeah.
Yeah, so, and I don't mind that myself. So, and have a cuppa and all that sort of stuff, and look at the fire. And so we did that and went for a drive. I got a side-by-side motorbike thing that I took on the trailer just to go for a drive around and have a look at see if we could find a pig or whatever. And I've got 3 blue heelers that fighting for the front seat. But anyway, yeah. So we went for a run on Friday night and had a bit of a look around. No pigs, but I was going to pack up and come straight home Saturday morning. But I thought, I'll go down this other fence line and have a look and see if we can find a pig down that way, because they were growing a bit of bloody rice there for feed, cattle feed, I think it was. They were growing rice for on Mount Kepler Station. So I drove along the fence line, and there's a lot of long grass there, sort of probably 6 or 8 foot high, and you're driving right up against the wire netting fence which they've put up to try and keep wallabies out of that rice stuff they're growing. And there's a bit of water in the paddock. You can see a bit of water there, and you're right sort of on top of the Adelaide River bank on the left-hand side, and I'm going along the right-hand side along the fence line. And all of a sudden, there was about a 11 or 12 foot salty for a second, when you just sort of see the bloody crocodile in the long grass. You don't know whether he's on your side of the fence or the other side of the fence, but he was on the other side of the fence where they've been growing the rice. And I'd say he got caught in there during the wet season when the water was dried up and it was all flooded. And now he was trying to get back to the river, and the fence was naturally holding him up, so he's up against the fence. And I pointed it out to the young bloke. I said, look, there's a bloody crocodile just there. And anyway, we drove right beside him because that's where the track was. And I kept going because I thought the blue heelers jump out and they stick their heads through the bloody fence to try and grab the crocodile. He's going to grab them. So I kept moving and went up a bit. I said to the young bloke, I said, oh, buddy, turn around and we'll drive back. So I said, we won't stop. I'll slow down. And I said, as long as the crocodile doesn't move and we keep moving, the dogs won't take any notice and they'll stay there. So there we come back, and the crocodile, you could see the grass moving on the other side of the fence where he was. So he was walking and moving, and I thought, oh, the poor bugger's going to get caught in there, eventually, and end up dying or whatever. But as we went past him and got up a bit further, you could see where the wallabies had been pushing under the bloody fence and created this bloody bit of a hollow in the ground, and it would have been big enough for him to get through. So I'd say in another hour or so he would have walked his way along the edge of the fence and got through there and then got back down into the river. But just something unusual to bloody see when you're not expecting the bloody crocodile, you're looking for a pig.
Well, yes. So what was the outcome? He's gone back to the river, has he? Or?
Oh, I didn't hang around, Ian, because if I stopped, the dogs would have jumped out, so I just kept moving. But yeah, he was heading in the direction of that hollow where the wallabies had dug it out and gone under the fence to get into where they're growing the rice. And he would eventually, I'd say in another hour or so, he would work his way down there and down that hollow, and they instinctively know where the water is anyway, and he would have headed back to the river. Yeah.
Well, I love this, mate. All of us sitting here can only marvel at that, mate. The crocodile, the wallabies, the dogs, the river, the fence, the whole deal, mate. We'll never see it. But Lindsay, how long have you live in Darwin?
Yeah, out of Darwin, mate. About 35 k's out of Darwin, out a place called Herbert, a rural area out the sort of country too, mate. Yeah.
And life's always got something interesting in it, Lindsay, hasn't it?
Oh, exactly, mate. Yeah. But I had heart surgery in Adelaide in February down in Adelaide, and they did a fantastic job because I'm still here. But no, I'm not allowed to do too much now. I've got to restrict me bloody lifting and carrying and all this sort of stuff. So yeah, I've just started up a bit of a bloody spot where people can come and park a caravan and safe, secure rural bloody property with I've got a billabong that I back onto. And,
just the odd 12-foot crocodile, yeah. Just safe and secure.
I haven't got a 12-footer in that billabong, Ian. Nah.
Oh dear. There's lots of crocs around, isn't there? I mean, I hear anecdotal stories about since '74 when they stopped the shooting and things like that, and now they're bounced back bigger than ever.
Yeah, well, they have, Ian, but there's more and more people up here too, like years ago you went out to the bush to a river or bloody boat ramp somewhere and put your boat in or whatever, and you might have seen half a dozen boats. Whereas now you go out there, and with the population of Darwin, you see bloody 20 or 30 bloody boats. So there's a bigger population running around in the bush and naturally seeing a lot more crocodiles and having more and more, potentially crocodile encounters, And people have just got to be aware and bloody just realise that these bloody things live in the water here, and they've always been there and they always will be there, and we've just got to treat them with respect and bloody do the right thing,
Leather undertakers.
Exactly, that's right, Ian. That's right, yeah.
Good on you, Lindsay.
No worries, Ian. Take care, mate.
I'll see you in Darwin.
Okay, mate. Come and catch up one day.
I will do. Good on you. See ya.
See you, mate.
Bye. While I was talking to Lindsay, I found this. It's the Pigrams, the Crocodile River song. 1300 700 222. Give us a ring wherever you are. In a minute, we'll talk about bees and, well, birds, I suppose, too.
The Sunday smell of pizza at Five Rivers Club tonight, shattered by a disco of red and blue lights. Hear the sirens wailing, the cops hot on the tail of a busted Hilux doing 50, trying to get away. And it's 6 miles to the old town and a whole six back again. Maybe he'll run him out of fuel before they run him into jail. And all the town is watching, it's on for young and old. This melodrama in Five Rivers, the car chase in slow-mo. He's up a Crocodile River on a moonless night, trying to shine a light on those red beady eyes. In a dinghy with no paddle on a turning tide, at the mercy of a salty such is life. Investigating me in a rainbow river, take a bogey every night and bring home more than the pay to the darling wife. Up that Crocodile River on a moonless night, trying to shine a light on those red beady eyes. In a dinghy got no paddle on a turning tide, at the mercy of a salty such is life. Talking tough, and who would right the wrongs, who would stand and fight, and who was gonna run. Are you gonna hold the candle, or you gonna hold the gun, when there ain't no use in waking if your dreaming's done? They're up a Crocodile River on a moonless night, trying to shine a light on those red beady eyes. In a dinghy got no paddle on a turning tide, at the mercy of a salty up that Crocodile River on a moonless night, trying to shine a light on those red beady eyes. In a dinghy got no paddle on a turning tide, at the mercy of a salty such is life.
It's the Pigrams. Just that's the sound they make. That sound. Well, it's. I did a big country program with Ronnie Eden. I think it was Ronnie Eden. In North Queensland, it was the Edward River. It was what was it called? The place we went to. I'm not sure. I'm just looking at my map. I think it was Yeah, near Pomperau. There was a crocodile farm up there on the Edward River, and I went up there, and wow, that was an eye-opener. That was quite a while. It's 30 years ago, more than 30 years ago, actually. But that's the sort of sound. We went out at night filming them with a spotlight, not shooting them, filming them. That's the sort of sound they make. That sort of scary in some sort of way. All Over News coming up. Oh, morning, Phil. How are you? City to surf in Perth today. They get about 8,000, I think, 8 to 10,000 people in that. Our number this morning, 1300 700 222 or 028 333 1020. macattracks@gmail.com. It's 7:45. This is the All Over News. This is the All Over News, and I've had lots of correspondence re Vietnam. The VVV, the Vietnam Veterans Vigil, and Vietnam Veterans Day. And this email from Jeff Parks from the organisation Nasho's Fair Go. He says, Ian, Nasho's Fair Go has grown to 2,800 members since our creation in February last year. We are now the largest organisation representing the 1965 to 1972 Nashos who did not serve in Vietnam. We are lobbying the government to give us some benefits for the 2 years of our youth lost to conscription. No luck yet, but we're only warming up. I was in Canberra for the 50th anniversary of the end of the involvement in Vietnam. It was a very moving ceremony and brought back many memories of my service and my mates who are no longer with us. It's not often known that 640 Nashos died while in service, 210 in Vietnam and 430 in Australia, PNG and Borneo. The major cause of death? Not enemy fire, but road accidents. Young men desperate to get home to see loved ones, often driving all night to get home for a few hours. Sadly, we received notification that 10 of our members passed away last week alone. We have to get our skates on or we'll all be gone before the government gives us any benefits. Thanks again. Kind regards, Jeff Parks, President, Nasho's Fair Go. And on that theme, this was Bob last week.
Morning, Macca. I'm between Narrabri and Moree, heading up the Newell, just coming back from the 50th commemoration in Canberra. I'm a Vietnam vet. I was there in 1970. I was called up in 1969 as a teacher. One of the guys that was killed at Long Tan I went to school with in Downlands, Toowoomba. A bloke called Frank Top. Frank was killed in the first 10 minutes of the battle. He was in my class at Downlands in 61-62, Downlands boarding school in Toowoomba. And in those days I was 13 years old. I was about 4 stone wringing wet and I copped a bit of bullying. But Frank, for some reason I've never understood, he stood up for me on a few occasions and then he kind of disappeared out of my life. And I was in Helidon. I had a job in education in Toowoomba and I had to represent the regional director at a funeral. I looked down and here's a headstone with Frank's name on it. That was about 2003 and that was the first I knew that he'd been killed at Long Tan. I ended up going into teaching kids with cerebral palsy when I got back, which probably was a great rehabilitation for me. And I had a fellow teacher come up to me and say, oh, you've gone from making spastics to teaching. That really knocked me around that for a while. It took a while to kind of come to terms with that. It was a very strange, but that's how it was back then, you know. One of the reasons for calling you is, I don't know if you've heard of a group called Nasho Fair Go.
I have.
Yeah, well, those blokes, I feel very sorry for them. I mean, I did quite well out of Vietnam. I got a rehab scholarship. I ended up going to uni. I ended up getting some qualifications. I retired as a principal, and none of that would have been possible without the rehab course. Now, these blokes, the guys that were called up and didn't go to Vietnam, you know, the 1 in 12 of us who were called up, about 16,000 went to Vietnam and about 40,000 were called up altogether. They didn't go. They had their lives disrupted. They were sent to different parts of the country. They had relationships destroyed. They were supposed to get their jobs back at the end of the 2 years. They sort of did, but in some cases, they were sent to places where they really didn't want to be, you know. And quite a few of them have suffered quite badly. And I'm okay. I've got a gold card. When I turned 70, because I'd seen Operation Service, I got a gold card. And my health is good, fortunately. A lot of these other guys who didn't go to Vietnam, the best they can get is a thing called a white card, which looks after them for mental health and cancer, and that's about it. And I don't think it would cost the taxpayer a great deal of money just to include the few that are left now and that are falling off the perch week by week, to have a gold card just
Exactly.
to see it through for the rest of their lives.
And interesting to hear Bob remark on the nasty slur that he got at work. And he says resignedly, oh well, that's how it was back then, that nastiness. As one who lived through the Vietnam time, yes, it was very nasty. And we see in the last 10 years here in Australia that nastiness return, not just amongst ordinary people, but amongst politicians who ought to know better, but obviously don't.
I'm going to sing you my little song about a little thing that I entitle The Bee. Oh, what a glorious thing to be, healthy, grown-up, busy, busy bee, making hay while time is right, building up the honeycomb just like right. I'd like to be busy, busy bee, being just as busy as bee can be, flying all around the wild hedgerows, sticking all the carrots on the parson's nose. Honeybee, honeybee, like a
I thought I'd play that because I wanted to talk about bees. My guest this morning on the All Over News is Keith Steele. Good morning, Keith. How are you?
Good morning, Macca. How are you?
Yeah, good. Keith's a beekeeper for how long, Keith?
61 years.
So you know what your way. That's a lovely little song, Arthur Askew.
Beautiful, that.
And it said, amongst things, little healthy bees, and that's been the problem, hasn't it, in the last, whatever,
It certainly has.
6 months? I don't know how long
Yeah.
it's been going on now.
Well, it came here, or they detected it in the port of Newcastle in June 2022, but it has been in the country 12 to 18 months prior to that without anyone knowing about it.
How does that happen?
Well, some unscrupulous person brought queen bees or something into the country undetected, and they didn't know until the bees started to produce varroa on them, and they found 4 varroa in one of the hives at the port of Newcastle, the little sentinel hives that we have that we check regularly for varroa mite, and they've been doing that for the last decades.
Keith's a long-time beekeeper. Keith, you better tell people about varroa, because bees, and I mean, I think everybody knows that the bees pollinate everything. Almonds, you name it, bees, no bees, no nothing, really.
Anything with a flower on it, they pollinate.
Exactly. And varroa, this varroa mite's been around, it's overseas, but...
It's been around for in excess of 30, 40, 50 years overseas, and we were the only country that stood alone varroa free. Now we're just joined the club.
Now, I spoke last week or the week before to a bloke who was taking his bees to the almonds, I think in Victoria somewhere.
Yeah.
And he says we do all that, but he seemed to think that we'll get over it. We'll learn to live with it, and that's the deal. What's your the varroa? It cripples the bees basically.
It basically cripples the bees, and we've got to then bring them back to normality over many years of using insecticides in the hive to keep the varroa at bay. We can't eradicate the varroa because overseas have had it for up to 50 years. There's one chap in America, Randy Oliver, who's a bee person, and I read about him in the AB cable, and he's about the only one I've got any faith in at the moment that may come up with a solution to fix the problem, but it's a long way off.
So we all learn to live with it at the moment.
We will have to learn to live with it.
At the moment, it's only in New South Wales. is
It's
that right?
only in New South Wales.
As far as we know.
As far as we know, the latest is it was detected in Kempsey, and since that detection, there was one finding of it. Now it's reached 13. It's reached right out as far as the coast, Crescent Head, Stewarttown and the avocado crop up there is in Warri now, and before they detected it, they were in the blue zone, and a lot of the beekeepers have already set their bees down to the almonds, and Victoria on the border are detecting it down there. It's little spots of it breaking out. It's like a bushfire 2 years ago. They had it contained, broke the thing, went all the way up, and it fizzled out there to pick up the rainbow shots and burn those bees, and that's what Varroa is, and that's how it is in this country. It is here, and it is to stay. I and a few other intelligent people in the beekeeping industry have called out one in particular that everyone knows in the beekeeping trade, Bruce White. He is the guru of bees in Australia, and I will stand next to him and say that he is the client of a few others that I don't think the names, but the thing is, we are having to live with it now, and as soon as they call it as endemic, like I did in the 80s with the Japanese bee council, they tried to offset through every gathered with the THC, and now it's in a containment stage. I think it's spread everywhere because, and they don't worry about that particular bee, but it carries the Varroa mite, but it doesn't affect them as much as it does. It just knocks mellifera for a 6, but they can live with Varroa destructor that the others can't.
I'm talking to Keith Steele. So Keith, what does this mean for the fertilisation of all our crops and things like that, learning to live with it? Does it mean that...
Well, they can still pollinate them, but they need to say that they can't beat it first, and the DPI biosecurity, it's very much similar to when the 2,000 people got off the boat at Circular Quay when COVID was around,
yeah.
and they said no worries, and they went out and pollinated everyone, and then for 2 years we suffered. Lots of beautiful people died in the world, millions of them, and the same thing is going to happen here. They're destroying people's bees in the red zones. One in my area is Glenorrhea, and I'm in where I live.
Where do you live?
I live in Toongabbie, and I'm in the purple zone, so I'm, the next man came up next, and then the Wolfman, and I'll be in that zone. If it moves down, it breaks the containment lines. They'll ring me up and say, Keith, bit of bad luck, we've got to euthanize your bees. And everyone within a 10-kilometre radius of the red zone are totally eliminated. And I've got mates of mine that are crying and so upset about losing their bees, and there's nothing we can do about it. There's nothing I will do about it, but my theory is we don't matter, but the commercial people do. I've been in the bush all my life, and I've mixed with the commercial people. They've got a business to run, we don't. We've got a job to go to. We've got a few hives in our backyard that we make a few quid out of honey, but it's the ones out there that suffer is the big fellas, and they're the ones that are worried at the moment. So if I was in charge, I'd eradicate all the bees in Sydney where they are, and go from there. But they say, well, he's mad, he doesn't know what he's talking about. But if you get to the heart of the problem, eradicate it here, at least the fellas over the Blue Mountains and down in Victoria and everywhere else are still Varroa free. But now, I looked at the last map, there's little spots of red and purple all over the joint.
And as you said, going across the border and then...
Going across the border and everywhere.
Yeah.
One Varroa it takes to ruin the whole industry. One Varroa can make 2, then they will get into a cell and they'll breed on the larval at the 5 to 5.5 day point. Then the larva from the Varroa get onto the bee, they cap it over, 5 or 6 come out. The only ones that leave the cell after the bee is hatched are the females. The boys stay in there and they keep propagating the whole thing. And it's just like I compare it to COVID. There was nothing they could do about it.
No, exactly. I'm talking to Keith still. I'll continue talking to Keith after the news, which is coming up. We'll talk more about bees. As my economics teacher would say after he gave us some information, it's a sobering thought. Keith, that's a sobering thought too. This came in from John Lefebvre, where he said, Macca, don't despair. Certain mushroom species are extremely helpful, it says here. A quick internet search will show good results, particularly from internationally regarded mycologists. Paul Stamets, is it? Please pass on hope and solutions to your listeners, says Jean Lefebvre. Who knows? Mushrooms, hello. Mushrooms. The Edinburgh tattoos on at the moment, bagpipes at 50 paces. It's fantastic, Mark Campbell said. Lindsay's got the crocodiles up there at the Herbert. Or just out of Herbert, actually. 1300 700 222, maccatracks@gmail.com. It's 8 o'clock.
ABC News, good morning, I'm Yvette Gray. The Victorian opposition leader says his party's win in the Warrandyte by-election sends a clear message to the state Labor government. The Liberal Party easily retained the safe seat in Melbourne's northeast, with Liberal candidate Nicole Werner securing more than 57% of the primary vote. Labor did not contest the by-election, but Liberal leader John Pesutto told supporters last night Warrandyte voters had spoken.
They have said that they are tired of the incompetence. They have become tired of the branch stacking, the misuse of taxpayer dollars and the breach of faith with the Victorian people. That's what they've said tonight.
Independent Senator Lydia Thorpe has confirmed she is the politician subjected to threats of violence in an online video after the Australian Federal Police charged a man earlier this week. Nicholas Hines reports.
The AFP charged a 30-year-old Melbourne man with using a carriage service to menace, harass or cause offence after he allegedly posted a video online threatening violence against Senator Lydia Thorpe. The AFP said the man was charged following a year-long investigation after the senator referred the video to police in January 2022. Police searched his Mernda home in June this year, seizing electronic devices he allegedly used to create and distribute the video. He's due to face court next month.
Surfer Tommy Begg has undergone a second round of surgery after being critically injured in a shark attack on the New South Wales mid-north coast on Friday. Nick Pomita reports.
The father of two was surfing at Lighthouse Beach when a 4-metre great white shark bit his legs and lower body. For 30 seconds, Toby fought with the shark and survived. The 44-year-old underwent a second round of surgery. His brother-in-law posting on Facebook, Toby will require many surgeries and has years of rehabilitation ahead of him. An online fundraiser has been set up to support the young family. Other victims of shark attacks are offering their support. The Department of Primary Industries has deployed additional smart drum lines as well as aerial surveillance to locate and tag any sharks in the area. The shark that attacked Toby Begg wasn't tagged.
A fire on a train in the Indian state of Tamil Nadu has killed at least 9 people and injured 55 others. Officials say the blaze started when passengers tried to light a gas cylinder they brought on board to make coffee while the train was stopped at a station. This passenger says people were trapped in the carriage until someone broke the windows.
When the fire broke out, we ran, but the doors and windows were closed. We couldn't find the keys until someone found a tool and broke a window. Those who could get out exited, and those who couldn't get out were trapped.
AFL great Michael Long is today starting his second walk from Melbourne to Canberra in support of the Yes campaign for the Indigenous Voice to Parliament referendum. In 2004, the former Essendon player walked more than 650 kilometres because he didn't believe there was a voice or vision for First Nations communities in Australia. His first trek 19 years ago led to a meeting with the then Prime Minister John Howard. Now Long says he's decided to take the walk again ahead of the referendum because he says he wants to drive change.
I want to see change in my lifetime. It's got to happen now in my lifetime. You know, it's got to happen for our communities now. It can't be another 19 years we want to be talking about this.
In the AFL, the Western Bulldogs will be relying on Carlton to beat GWS on the final day of the home and away season if they're to play in September. ABC Sports' Clint Wheeldon reports.
It's wait and hope now for the Bulldogs. If the Giants prevail over the Blues, GWS will replace the Bulldogs in the 8. Carlton is chasing a 10th straight win, and full forward Charlie Curnow needs at least 2 goals to win the Coleman medal. Adelaide's Taylor Walker is the current leader. He finished the season with 76 goals after a 9-goal haul helped the Crows beat West Coast by 45 points in Perth. The Eagles unable to ride the emotion of farewelling retiring champions Luke Shuey, Shannon Hearn and Nick Natanui. West Coast finished with the wooden spoon and the #1 draft pick after North Melbourne beat Gold Coast by 35 points. Brisbane locked in second spot, beating the Saints by 12, while Freo down the Hawks by 37. Clint Wheeldon, ABC Sport.
To the weather, mostly cloudy near and south of the ranges with isolated showers mainly in the east. Morning fog in the northwest, then a dry and partly cloudy day. Melbourne, cloudy today, a top of 17. It's currently 9 degrees. ABC News.
They've developed a way to make concrete nearly 30% stronger by incorporating processed coffee grounds into the material. And do I have to sing this text?
Mornings with Virginia Trioli.
We built this city on coffee grounds. You're going to have that earworm all day now. Let's talk weather. Good morning, Lincoln.
I generally think we built the city on sausage rolls, but I can move to coffee.
Virginia Trioli.
On ABC Radio Melbourne
and the ABC Listen app.
They might be walking round the coast or swimming laps or making toast. They might be piling sandbags on the levee. From Pernalulu, the Southern Highlands, or cruising the Coronation Islands, they're all up listening to Macca on a Sunday morning.
A lot of architects didn't like the stained glass windows to go in when the church is going to be dedicated. It took away from their glory, and it happened quite a lot where we had to put the windows in after the official dedication.
They've gone home.
Yeah, they got a little bit jealous, you know.
Architects are like that.
Yeah.
But you're an architect too, aren't you, really, with this on? Does it take a long time to do one of these? I bet it does.
A pair of windows for the Maris brothers there. That's taken 2.5 months to make that design and make that pair. Everything's flowing along. I've always found it best to keep to myself, be my own worst critic. I'm very savage on myself. I've redone enormous parts of windows, and I found different processes to evaluate the artwork through somebody else's eyes, purely by looking at the object in reverse in a mirror. And you see the reverse and you see where it's a bit out of balance or could have been improved this way or that way. There's little tricks I've found through my way of working that have benefited me enormously over the years.
This is really very Catholic on a Sunday morning. Yeah, Macca in the morning turns my week around. He picks me up when I feel down. I wait all week for Macca on a Sunday morning. The big wet's here, at least for some. The dams are full, the rivers run. As one wag said, who shot the El Nino brothers? On Kilto Station, Roebuck Plains, through drought, bushfire, flooding rains, we celebrate Australia on a Sunday morning. My weekly fix, Macca on a Sunday morning.
Good morning. Apparently the El Ninos are coming back. Well, that's the story. 1300 700 222. That little grab there was from a bloke called Kevin Little. He's passed away now. He was a lead light artist. The interesting things he said. And you learn lots by talking to artists because artists are very contemplative. They think about what they do and they find their own ways to do things. But Kevin was, I interviewed him at a place called Arncliffe, but he moved out to the country, but I think he's passed away a year or two ago. I especially like native birds and native flora done in lead light. Beautiful, with the light coming through it. Oh, just something magic about it, something magic. Give us a ring, 1300 700 222. I wanted to introduce you to our poet laureate, Mandy Tunica, who's talked to us some years ago about average, and it's a funny word, isn't it? Average, usually used to describe us at school, average student, average student. But I think we're all special in some ways. Maybe sometimes we're average at school, but for all sorts of reasons. Not because we're, in quotes, dumb, because we just didn't twig. But you'll find people, you'll find really bright people who are really average at a lot of things. We're all average in some way, aren't we? Come and meet our poet enthusiast, Mandy Tunica. And I asked Mandy,
it's called The Average Child. I don't cause teachers trouble. My grades have been okay. I listen in my classes and I'm in class every day. My parents think I'm average and my teacher thinks so too. I wish I didn't know that because there's lots I'd like to do. I'd like to build a rocket of a book that shows you how, or start a stamp collection. Well, there's no use starting now because since I've found I'm average, I'm just smart enough to know there's nothing special that I should expect of me. I'm part of the majority, that hump part of the bill, who spends his life unnoticed in an average kind of hell.
Wow.
That's sad.
It is sad, but...
It's average.
Who wrote that?
Michael Buscemi.
And who's he?
Don't have no idea.
Well,
He's a poet. He's a poet. Well,
but he's writing for other people.
He's writing for the child who is told he's average.
Yeah.
That always gets C's.
Or the kids who are different.
Yes. Did you get A's?
No. Sometimes I did, but sometimes I did all right. But mostly I wasn't interested in school. Actually, I was interested for 5 minutes in things, or sometimes I'd get interested in French, and sometimes I'd get interested in economics, and sometimes I'd get interested in English. Often I'd get interested in English because Mr. Polly or something, H.G. Wells or whatever. I just did enough to stay out of trouble, if you know what I mean.
Well, when I was doing Leaving Certificate, I could remember clearly we had to write a composition, a free composition, and you had to practice. And I had a teacher who used to give me 4 out of 10 for every free composition. She believed if you give you low marks, you wanted to try harder. One
that's
day...
not the thing now, is it? Now,
no. Well, anyway, one day I wrote something or other like the carefree laughter of children at play. I was about 15, 16. And she ticked it and put good expression, and I got 5. So from then on, I used that expression in letters to people, in university essays, anything I did. I decided that the carefree laughter of children at play was worth the extra marks.
That's the story. The carefree. That's Mandy Tunica. The carefree laughter of children at play. She used it in letters to people, and she used it in her essays at university. My sister did the same thing. She used to have a poem, and she'd put it in all her English. That's why she was an A student. She'd say, she'd have this poem. No friend, no comrade Lucy knew. She told me this because she'd say, I'll just put this in. No friend, no comrade Lucy knew. She dwelt on a wide moor, the sweetest thing that ever grew beside a cottage door. And obviously the markers were pretty impressed by this because she always got A's, especially in English. So that may be a clue. Find a little quote and bung it in your essays. Could be an essay on economics or something else, completely irrelevant, but I reckon you get marks for. Yeah, must be hard to be marking. Do they still mark papers like they do, or is it all done by AI now or something? I don't know. But when you're going through paper after paper, most students, and then all of a sudden you come across something like that, I'd give them a pass, just for no reason at all. Our number's 1300 700 222. This morning we've had lots of lovely calls about all sorts of things, bits and pieces. And you, 1300 700 222, macatracks@gmail.com. We're talking about bees with Keith Steele. I'll return to that in just a moment. But we'll talk to you. G'day, this is Macca.
Oh, hi Macca, it's Judy. I'm calling from Desert Song. We've spoken before, and I'm in Alice Springs, at the moment looking out at the beautiful West Macdonald Ranges, and the weather's absolutely beautiful today. So you were talking about people coming up to Queensland, and I thought, well, why aren't they coming up to Alice?
I don't know. Tell me.
Oh, well, our tourism's down 40% in Alice this year, and I think it's a bit of, bad press, but I haven't seen anything like that myself. But just wanted to let your listeners know it's the 10th anniversary this year of Desert Song Festival up here at Alice. And we start on September 8th to the 17th. So wondering if people who, think they might have the desire to come up to Central Australia, which, as you know, is just beautiful.
Beautiful.
And
nice time of year too. Nice time of year. Still a bit fresh in the morning, so lovely.
Yeah. Well, the nights have been a bit chilly, but the weather has just been between 25, 30 every day so far for us. So, if you want to take that essential journey, we say, to Alice Springs and come. We've got lots of music programs this year. We've got a couple who play the Indian sitar and cello from India, and Soweto Gospel Choir's coming up, and the culmination in the Gorge on Sunday the 17th is just going to be amazing.
I'll say, Judy, I hope lots of people come. maybe it's the cost of diesel and things like that, and times are tough. You know what I mean? There's I'm not sure. That wouldn't stop the nomads, maybe, but it might stop others.
No.
But there's I think that would be more than bad publicity. I don't think. I don't know, but that'd be a reason, I think, because
true.
Cost of diesel's pretty high, and airfares are, I haven't flown for years, for a long time, but airfares are pretty exy too. So all those things happen, but it's worthwhile. It's a great, and I know people put the Territory on their list of things to do, and you can go to the Alice and Tennant Creek and up to Darwin and lots of places in between. It's just a lovely. The desert is just beautiful.
Oh, it's just amazing, isn't it? I was out at Arayonga, which is a little Aboriginal community, 2.5 hours west of Alice yesterday, meeting some of the women in the choir out there, and we had the most beautiful day. So many things to do out there. So
how long have you been in the Alice, Judy?
We're here for 5 weeks, so from Melbourne, left behind cold old Melbourne.
Right.
So, busy Melbourne, though I'm on the Mornington Peninsula down there, which is really beautiful. But come up here to
the Desert Song.
Support the Desert Song Festival, 10th anniversary. Can you believe it?
No, from the 8th to the 17th. Good on you, Judy.
Yeah, thanks so much, Macca. You take care.
Good on you.
Okay. See
Bye.
ya. Bye-bye.
G'day, this is Macca.
Hi, Macca. It's Jonathan Dixon from Melbourne, but now a resident for the last 14 days in Broome. And
half your luck.
Well, it's a crisp morning here, but you don't want to wish for too much because it's been 35 degrees here for the last 14 days.
Oh, wow.
And so I just wanted to ring and just give a quick report because I'm quite sure a lot of people from Melbourne come up here. And we're at Cable Beach where we always stay. And there was a chap on the beach who ran a beach umbrella business, and everyone knew him very well, and unfortunately this week he died. And I just wanted a quick story with him where you'd go down and you'd ask for an umbrella, a chair and a deck lounge, and he'd look at you and he'd say, well, you want a mixed grill, do you? So I used to love coming up here and walking down and, and just walking up and asking for a mixed grill. You felt like you're part of the scene. But apart from that, I went to the Broome races, backed a horse called Jimmy's Secret because I heard a couple of old cockies saying that was the one. Well, the secret is he can't run. And the last thing just to report is, because it's been so hot, I picked up a book here called The Ghosts of Roebuck Bay.
Right, yep.
And, gee, what a story that was. 9 zeros, in on the 3rd of March, 42. Bang, sunk them all. And it was quite a story. But anyway, look, it was just to give you a report from Broome saying
always love a report from Broome, mate. Haven't been to Broome for ages, but I remember it fondly. Lots of tourists in town?
Yes, it sort of fluctuates. The weekends are busy. I suppose a lot of people fly up from Perth.
Yeah, for the races, but because I was just talking to Judy and Alice, and she says tourism's down 40% in the Alice and probably the Territory generally. And I would have thought one of the reasons for that would be the price of diesel and the fact that people haven't got as much money maybe. So, and that Broome's in the same sort of boat, I suppose, although you get a lot of local, but still it's a long way from Perth or Albany up to Broome, in a car.
What you do notice, Macca, are the amount of grey nomads. At sunset where they tackle the beach and all line on the beach, looking at the sunset. It's almost like a religious situation, the way people just sit there and look at the sun setting. But it's been beautiful, and I go back to Melbourne today. So
you're going back for the finals of the footy. I know that. There'll probably be because we were just up in Brisbane at Mount Gravatt, and then we were at Burleigh Heads, and every second person I talk to is from down south, from Tassie, but mostly from Melbourne and Victoria and stuff. But this is the finals, footy fever. This is the time of year, isn't it? September, and it's when all the finals start, isn't it?
Yes, it is, Macca, and it's always a very exciting time to be in Melbourne.
I was going to say something stupid to a Melburnian. Have you got a team? I mean, if you don't have a team, you're an outcast, aren't you? In Melbourne, everyone's got a team.
Yes, I played VFA for 7 years, which is which was the level under, and we used to always be associated with St Kilda, so I'm a St Kilda supporter, and fortunately they're in the 8th this year, so we'll see how they go.
Long-suffering St Kilda supporter, you should say.
Thank you, Macca.
Was it 65 or 66 they last won the cup or something? Is that right?
65, I think it was.
Yeah.
Someone's going to shoot me.
Cowboy Neil and Carl Ditterich and all that.
Well, Carl's a very good friend of mine, and unfortunately he missed that final.
Oh, did he?
Because he was rubbed out.
Oh, that's right,
he's travelling along well, Shad.
I love that. I love that about Melbourne and Victoria, just and generally down south, how the football is. To me, it's the glue that keeps communities together in lots of ways. I mean, you can all hate Collingwood or whatever you do, or hate Manly or whatever, but there's something about that football culture that everybody, it's part of everything, isn't it, in Melbourne? You don't go anywhere without football, really. It's in business and pleasure, everything. It's all about, which is quite strange probably to people north of the border.
I'm sure it is. All right, Macca, but it's as I said, the weather up here's been perfect. So.
And I'll have a mixed grill. Mixed grill.
It was fantastic. Dear Daryl. Yeah.
Good on you, Jonathan.
Cheers, Macca.
See ya. Bye. 1300 700 222. That's our number. When I sit here and listen to you people, it's just us. This is called Just Us. There's something nice about Australia and the happy-go-lucky attitude.
Clear blue skies, as long as I remember. Can I remember the sweet smell of rain? I've seen tears in their eyes, comes from the hunger. All I wanna do is make them smile again. Weather don't look like changing, staying blue, no grey. Though our lives need rearranging, in our hearts have to stay. That's who we are, just us. No pretense, no fuss. I've always worked this land and always will. That's who we are, just us. Spend our days plowing dust.
my family. They wouldn't give up this fight we've always fought. And the banks are circling just like an eagle. I suppose to them we're all just a lost cause.